So to find the mean and the standard deviation of D, we're going to need to take our values and our probabilities and enter them into lists on our calculator. So I'm going to we'll use list 3 and list 4 this time. I'll hold on to what's in list 2 and list 3. That's our sum. So in list 3, I'm going to do the values for each of the possible differences. So we've got -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then in list 4, I'm going to put the corresponding probabilities. So the probability of having a difference of -3, 0.015. The probability of having a difference of -2 is 0.055. Then we have 0.145, 0.235, 0.260, 0.195, 0.080, and 0.015. We'll just check those again. Good. Looks good. Good. Okay. So now that we have that entered, we'll go to our calculate menu. We'll do one variable stats. This time my values are in list 3 and my frequency list is in list 4. So I'm going to change that. And then I can calculate. So I have that the mean for D is 0.65, which makes sense. That's what we calculated earlier using the formula. The standard deviation, sigma of D, they give us is 1.441. And so then to calculate the variance, I'm just going to take that value, the standard deviation 1.441, we'll square it. And so the variance of D is 2.0. Is that right? Hang on. I feel like I copied something wrong. Maybe I need to go more decimal places. We'll go one more decimal place, 3. So I have 1.4413 squared. Yeah, that's a little better. A little more accurate. 0.773. And again, notice that if we go back to our mean and our standard, I'm sorry, not our mean, our standard deviation and our variance for the sum, we got approximately the same thing. And again, we might have a little bit, we might have a little bit of a rounding error there, but they're approximately the same. So it turns out that just like with range, when we're trying to calculate variance, it doesn't matter whether we add or subtract. We're always going to end up adding. And just like before, whenever we were adding the random variables, we're not going to be able to simply add their standard deviations together to find the standard deviation of the difference. But instead, we can find the variance of the difference by simply adding each of the variances together, and then we can take that value and take the square root. So just like with adding, we find the variance by finding the sum of the variances and then take the square root. And just like with range, our other measure of variance, it doesn't matter whether we're adding or subtracting the random variables. When we're combining them, we're always going to find the range or the variance by adding the range or the variance for each of the individual random variables that we're trying to combine, regardless of whether we're using addition or subtraction. So in our last example, they want us to calculate the mean and the standard deviation of the difference in the amounts that Pete and Aaron collect on a randomly chosen day. And we want to interpret each of those values in context. So now we want to calculate the mean and standard deviation of the difference in the amounts that they collect. Well, we already came up with the random variables C and D in the last lesson to represent the amount that Pete collects and the amount that Aaron collects. So I'm going to create a new random variable. We'll go with Q this time just to keep our variables different. And Q is going to be the difference in the amounts. That Pete. Let's try that again. Pete and Aaron collect. So we said that the amount that Pete collects is C. The amount that Aaron collects we call D. So we'll define Q to be C minus D. So what we need to do then is to find the mean for Q, the mean of the differences. And again, we can find that by finding the difference of the means for C and D, which we've already calculated. And then we want to find the standard deviation of Q. And in order to do that, first we'll find the variance of Q. We'll find the variance of Q by adding the variance of C and D. And then once we have that variance, we can take the square root to find the standard deviation. So take a few minutes to see if you can calculate those values. Once you have your answers, you can come back for part 5 to check.